So in this video we're going to be going over Antares AutoTune Pro in automatic mode. We're not going to do graphical mode, mainly because I tend to use Melodyne for this, but this automatic mode for me comes in very handy in a number of ways. One is if I quickly want to get a bit of AutoTune going, maybe the artist wants to track with it on in the right key, or if you're just trying to tidy up the sound a little bit even on top of an instance of Melodyne. So let's go through the controls here. Let's start out with setting the key. Now obviously a vocalist singing to a song is going to generally be singing the same notes that are found in the key of the music, and occasionally you might get one or two notes that aren't in the scale thrown in, but generally, especially on more contemporary stuff, you're going to stay within the key the vast majority of the time. So it's quite good to set the key of the song so that the notes that are in the scale are the only ones that can be snapped to. There are many ways that you can go about getting the key. One is obviously picking up an instrument and working out what the key of the song is. And in the later versions of AutoTune, you'll actually find that there's an automatic way of doing this. In AutoTune Pro, this version, you've got a plugin called AutoKey. So if I load this up, now what this will do is listen to the incoming music and work out what key it is in. So let's just play it, and what you'll see, if I factory default so it's showing nothing, and play it through, you should see that this change here. Okay, so it's detected that it's B minor, and if we bring up the main window again, we can see that we're set to C at the moment. So if I hit this Center AutoTune button, it will automatically change the key for us. Okay, so that's now in B minor. And just something that's interesting is that this, when you press this button, if you've got other instances of AutoTune open, it will actually send that to every single one of them. The other thing is that we've put this on the vocal, but if the vocal is actually really quite far out of tune, you might be best putting the AutoKey on the actual instrumental, and in this case, it would give you the same key. So the next thing that we want to do is set the voice type. So James is an alto style of voice, so he's not in the very highest registers where females tend to be in the more soprano register. So let's go for alto tenor because he's a higher male vocal, and this will sort the algorithm in such a way that it deals with those sorts of pitches and frequencies and throat types a little bit better. These are the basic controls that we're working with here. So if I played this should already be in a fairly good state. Okay, so that was pretty good for most of the notes, but you could hear a couple of wavers and a couple of other things, so we need to use some of the other settings to relax this a little bit. So let's just solo this vocal, and I'll play it through one more time so you can hear those in isolation.
And I'm not scared of the nights, but I'm stuck out with the animals. I'm a goose, why you sit behind your walls?
So ghouls went to the wrong note at the end there, and walls wavered a bit for me, so I think we can improve on that. Some of the controls that are worth knowing are these main four here. AutoTune Pro has done a really great job of simplifying the interface compared to older versions, and we can go to an advanced view that shows a lot of the other features and settings that you could change that were in the old version, but generally I'm not using these very much. So let's go back to the four main ones. We've got retune speed. So this is how quickly it's pulling the note to the right note. So the bigger this number, the longer it's going to take for it to hit to the right place. So if I set this to be 0, it's going to be pushing really, really quickly to the correct note, which should make it sound quite robotic, and we'll be going some way to getting that kind of T-Pain or Kanye West style vocal sound from doing this.
And I'm not scared of the nights, but I'm stuck out with the animals. I'm a goose, why you sit behind your walls?
Okay, so you could hear that kicking in really quick. So let's go the other way, and what you should see now is it's doing less movement on this meter here, and it'll be much more relaxed.
And I'm not scared of the nights, but I'm stuck out with the animals. I'm a goose. Why you sit behind your walls?
So we could hear that that wasn't doing as much, and there were still some pitchy notes there. So usually the settings that I'm using are somewhere between the default 20 and say 80 or 90, dependent on the style of vocalist and also if there's been any other processing before it. So in this case, I'm just going to play it through and set this to a place where I feel like it's good for the music.
And I'm not scared of the nights, but I'm stuck out with the animals. I'm a goose. Why you sit behind your walls? And I'm not scared of the nights, but I'm stuck out with the animals. I'm a goose. Why you sit behind your walls?
Okay, so that feels a little bit more natural and it feels like it's sitting in well, but we've still got the problems that we had before. So one way to solve this is with the FlexTune. So what the FlexTune is going to be doing, it's allowing the tuning algorithm to have a little bit more leeway, and especially some of the more expressive things in the more transient part of the sound, it leaves that a little bit more alone, so it sounds a little bit more natural. So let's just play that, and what you should hear is that it's kind of attacking the sustained part of the sound a little harder than the initial part.
And I'm not scared of the nights, but I'm stuck out with the animals. I'm a goose. Why you sit behind your walls?
And we'll just put it on max for a second so you can hear the difference, and then on the minimum.
And I'm not scared of the nights, but I'm stuck out with the animals. I'm a goose. Why you sit behind your walls?
Okay, so you could see on the quick transitions there that when it was on 100, there was no pitch correction going on, and on 0 it was flicking a little bit too quickly. So 43 kind of felt quite good on that. So let's just listen to that one more time.
And I'm not scared of the nights, but I'm stuck out with the animals. I'm a goose. Why you sit behind your walls?
Okay, great. So I'm going to reset that, and another way to kind of solve a similar sort of problem is to use the Humanize. So if you had a problem with the sustained part of the sound rather than the initial transient part of the sound, you'd be using this Humanize, so that when retune speeds are quicker, that it sounds a little bit more natural. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the retune speed all the way up to 0 again and use the Humanize function.
And I'm not scared of the nights, but I'm stuck out with the animals. I'm a goose. Why you sit behind your walls?
So you could hear how that was affecting the sustain a little bit differently. And as a rough rule of thumb, how I'm using AutoTune is mainly with these 3 knobs as soon as the key is set. So what I'm going to do is reset these back, and usually these 2 are somewhere, you know, in this first third generally when I'm setting them by ear. So let's go back to roughly about 30 or so on the retune speed, which is where I liked it, and I'm just going to, while this plays, just set the FlexTune and the Humanize by ear.
And I'm not scared of the nights, but I'm stuck out with the animals. I'm a goose. Why you sit behind your walls?
Okay, so that sounds quite a bit more natural in general, and I'm liking that a lot. But we still hear a couple of problems, okay? And this is one of the things about tuning vocals that I think people get wrong a lot. And they're relying on these automatic modes with AutoTune Pro, and you know, the better the singer, the more likely these sort of things are going to work straight away, or the more poppy and less kind of jazzy or bluesy notes are in there, the more accurate it will be. But in this case, James is a great singer, but he's hitting a couple of notes that are kind of outside of the scale a little bit, especially on these sustained ones. So what I quite often like to do for this is to run one instance of something in non-real time, so an instance of Melodyne, then going into AutoTune. So AutoTune doesn't have a choice but to move it to the right place. Okay, so what I've got here is I've pre-done a little bit of Melodyne, but I've moved things to where I think they should be. So in this case, hopefully with it still set to B minor, it shouldn't have that variation that it had in the previous version. So let's just play that back. So what you could hear there is that it wasn't having the wavering that it had before. I feel like now we've done that, we can actually increase the retune speed a little bit and it will put it in the right place without it wavering around. That's definitely a more poppy approach, and in this case I think that it's a little bit too much. I think I preferred it when it wasn't auto-tuning so much, so you'd be left with a choice of probably putting one of Melodyne or AutoTune Pro on this. In some cases, more poppy stuff, it sounds great to run one into the other and it gives you a lot more control.